There we go. Hello and welcome to Visiting Dugout, a Fans First Sports Network production. I am Chrystal O'Keefe. Today, I have Aaron on to talk about the Mariners. Welcome. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Aaron Casey, and Crystal, I met you about a year and a half ago with another network.
Mhm.
Been a hot minute since we've talked to each other in person on camera or in studio, so good to see you. Good to catch up with you and to give you a hand and just talk some baseball.
Yeah, it's what I love to do more than just about anything.
Absolutely. So, I guess to finish the introduction, my son and I host a podcast called First Pitch Strike. We talk all things baseball. We throw in some other things like hockey or whatever is happening here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But other than that, we stick to baseball and just enjoy having fun talking to each other. Um,
Yeah.
like I said, live in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So that's my life: baseball, Wyoming, and work.
Hey,
Good
that's
times.
all right. It's still fun. Baseball's fun.
Yeah.
Um, So, what is going on in Seattle right now with the Mariners? Anything fun?
Well, if you enjoy watching guys not hit, you have that going. We've got some really good starting pitching and trying to keep the rest of the bullpen off the IL.
That's
That's
legitimate. I understand that.
Yeah, so really, it's just offense that doesn't know how to hit the ball. When Oakland is hitting as a team better than you are, you're not doing good. And you have an MVP candidate on your team that should be hitting that. His average isn't horrible, but he just isn't producing.
Yeah, I actually very recently, just about almost a month ago now, I went on my little kind of baseball park hop around where
Hmm.
been. I went to the A's, the Coliseum before it was closed down. That was kind of the driving force is, hey, I have not
Hmm.
been to the Coliseum. We should probably get our butts in gear and get to Oakland now, like
Yes.
yesterday. So we did that, and then obviously San Francisco's right there, so we saw the Giants. But then we flew up to Seattle to spend a couple days there because Seattle is really neat in general.
Right.
But obviously, we had to catch a Mariners game, and they played the A's while we were there. But it was a fun night because it was a giveaway night. So I got the Funko Pop that's only exclusive to T-Mobile Park of Cal
Yeah.
Raleigh. So I was like, well, this was worth the price of admission
Oh,
alone.
absolutely.
So that was fun. And that was a really nice ballpark. I think it was probably one of my favorites. Um,
I, I
it's just,
support that.
yeah, it was
I
just
do. So I actually should be in August hitting the Coliseum. I'm going to be out there in that area and have a Monday night for free. So hopefully I'll be able to convince a few other people to go with me and just enjoy some run down baseball stadium, I
yeah,
guess.
it's
Um,
very run down.
so I did Oracle Park last year while I was out there with some of the people that'll be out there again this year, and beautiful ballpark,
Hmm.
fun. That is a definite numbers nerd ballpark
Yeah.
because you need anything statistic category, it is on their big screen.
Hmm.
Even if you didn't know you needed it, and it's there.
That ballpark, I think that one probably had the best view. It was very nice
Absolutely.
park. The scoreboard is intense. It was also the Pelican game where there was a pelican that landed kind of about center field, sat there for about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, just hanging out, wouldn't get up, and it finally kind of got spooked when a ball came near it. But like they had to kind of pause the game so they didn't
That's
injure
funny,
this poor pelican.
right?
Um,
Or a
and
player.
yeah, yeah, and they kind of started chanting for this pelican. A lot of jokes were made, and then it finally flew off, and everyone kind of like booed that it flew away. But it landed in like the kids zone area, and it just
Oh
sat
no.
there for another 30 minutes where they had to they had to close off this certain section of the park because it was just sitting there for the longest time. Um, the funniest experience probably I've had at a park, but I do think the T-Mobile Park was my favorite, just overall experience wise, and I got
I mean, call me biased. I think it's probably one of the top two stadiums in the nation.
yeah.
But I also grew up north of Seattle. I also unfortunately moved right as it was opening and hitting its stride. But every time I've been back there, it just is. It's beautiful. It's fun. The train horns going through every however often 30 minutes or so is it just takes you back to an old time baseball stadium in itself. And if you're in the right area, you get that view over the Puget Sound, and it's just
Hmm.
beautiful, just absolutely beautiful.
Yes, that was my favorite of the trip for sure. But anyway, we're totally off track now. It's
My
all right.
apologies.
No,
I have a bad habit of doing that.
I started it. So, looking back with the off season, how would you grade kind of what Seattle did?
That well, with the pitching staff, I give it about a B plus.
Okay.
The only reason it's not an A or even an A minus is just because you lost a couple guys in the bullpen to injury in Matt Brash and Santos, who still hasn't pitched yet, which you were hoping that worst case scenario didn't happen with Brash. It did, but you didn't bring anybody else in, and that's not good because now your closer got hurt on a I don't know what he was thinking play in game two of the series. So Munoz, he's prone to get injured because he gives it everything. You know, it could be a back, it could be a knee, it could. Fortunately, it's not an elbow and arm because he's already gone through that. But that's the only reason I would give a B plus. The other reason is because you jettison guys out, such as Suarez at third base, who actually might have turned out to be a brilliant move. You don't know that at the time, but you know you want to get better contact. You want to reduce your strikeout rate, and yet here the Mariners lead the world in strikeouts. World. I'm making some good money on DraftKings and BetMGM on pitchers throwing against the Mariners. I'm taking almost every time I bet strikeouts for pitchers against the Mariners, it's the over on the Ks. And that's why, is because they cannot hit the ball. They're just not themselves. And, you know, you want to reduce your strikeout rate, and yet here you are leading the world in strikeout rate. So
Yeah.
those are the two reasons it's a B plus.
I've seen a lot of screenshots of different parlays and all of that. I don't get into the whole betting thing, but I've seen so many White Sox fans just betting against this team and just making money every single night.
Yeah, yeah. If I was a betting man and really felt confident in the Rockies, I would bet that they lose the game in the ninth inning. It's just what they've been doing this past week. So you you know the feeling. They're in Chicago, and I feel for fans. I do. I really feel for people that bet like that against their team. But I'm one of them. I mean,
Yeah. It's brutal for both Chicago teams right now. Like the Cubs are really no better. I mean,
they're
obviously
reeling.
better off than the White Sox, but they're still having a terrible year too. So it's just a very dark time for baseball fans in Chicago.
Yeah, brighter for the Cubs, like you said, but they're reeling really
Yeah.
bad as well.
They got a confidence boost. They did just win the first two games of our series, the Crosstown series. We'll play it. We'll meet them again in August.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll beat us then too and take off with the cup. It's okay.
That's fair.
But good teams, despite not hitting the ball ever, the Mariners are still on top in the AL West. You've got the Rangers sort of on your tail, but not by much. And then the Astros, where they're very inconsistent these days. So how
Mhm.
do you stay, on top in those standings?
So with the Astros, yes, they've been very inconsistent. However, they just lost two more starting pitchers, both to TJ, and that's not good. So their training staff needs to figure out a better regimen for their starting pitchers. It just that's simple. So I see them contending. There's rumors that they've contacted um, Trevor Bauer. I think love him, hate him, despise him, whatever. Should he ever pitch again? And that aside, take all the controversy away. I think they'd be a better team with him, just simply because he's back to full strength down there in Mexico. So
Mm-hmm.
if they can pull him in, it helps them. I don't think it helps them get past Texas. I think
Mm-mm.
this is going to be a two-team race the entire season between Seattle and Texas. Right after you guys leave town, we get Texas in Seattle, and that's a three-game set, and it could set the tone for the rest
Mm-hmm.
of the year. And the biggest question I have with Texas is their starting pitching. They did phenomenal last year. I mean,
Yeah.
having watched John Gray here in Colorado for so long, I did not think he'd ever turn around. He had a heck of a year last year, um, but he's in his head too much, and he can't. There's no way he can repeat last year's performance. Um, but again, I say that, and well, Mariners hitters make every pitcher look like Cy Young. So, um, so I really do. I think it'll come down between Texas and Seattle, and one of those teams will get in the playoffs. Um, I don't think you're going to see two teams from the West get in the wild card, though. It's
No.
not. It's a very brutal division that started out really really bad and is only slightly better.
I would definitely rather see the Mariners pull it off just because I loathe Texas entirely, but especially their teams.
Right?
Um, I mean, I was happy for them that they won only because they had some likable guys like Dane Dunning, who,
Yes.
you know, came
I
from
like
that
Dunning.
came from that landslide trade with the White Sox, and
Right.
I miss him because he was doing. I mean, he's injured now, but he was doing so great. But he's
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and how do you hold them off? Man, you got to stop Corey Seager.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the bigger thing. Is if you can stop Corey Seager, you have a pretty fighting chance. I mean, Texas has a very stacked lineup, very
Hmm.
stacked. Um, but I like Seattle's pitching. You know, their starting pitchers have thrown the most innings in baseball. Their bullpen has thrown the fewest innings in baseball. And you combine those two, and then you get down the stretch. You got a good staff ready to go. So, and you're going to see that come the end of September.
Yeah, for sure. That could be your divisional race right there. That next series you were talking about.
Hmm.
Ooh. So,
Absolutely.
more fun question. I just added this actually today
Sure.
because the All Star Game voting is now open.
Hmm.
So, who are kind of your shoe in All Stars for the Mariners?
Uh, we don't have one. Okay. Offensively, we do not have one. You know, and you really think if you're just listening to this saying, "Come on, the Mariners are in first place," and I'm joking. I don't blame you. I
Yeah.
mean, what team can be hitting 29th in the majors and still be in first place in their division? None, except for the Mariners because they're starting pitching. As a shoe-in All-Star, Logan Gilbert and Andres Munoz. Those two, your top starter and your well, actually, he's not the top starter. He's like the number two or three guy, but you got him as your dominant force right now, and Andres Munoz is your closer, and you would not be where you are without Munoz right now. So those are my two shoe-ins, and honestly, those are probably the only two I would put in the All-Star game.
Yeah, that's
The
fair.
only other one that might have a chance is Cal Raleigh,
Hmm.
because he does lead the team in home runs, but he is a phenomenal defensive catcher, and teams are learning you don't run on him. So, and those are the only two reasons he has a chance to get to the All Star game. But other than that, no, nobody.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say Cal was so much fun to watch, and he kind of has been. He's been just a fun character with a totally ridiculous nickname.
I
So
love Dumper.
so I love it just that alone. I was jazzed. Like I can't even begin to tell you how excited I was when I saw that we were going to that giveaway night for him because man, I love him so much. But yeah, that's fair. I could see him just getting the fan vote in general.
I can.
Yeah.
But truth be told, even I can recognize that Perez there in Kansas City is having a phenomenal year and probably deserves a little more than anybody else.
Yeah. You aren't wrong on that one.
I know it hurts you. I'm sorry. I apologize. But I got to be honest.
We don't have a single person right now on this team that deserves to go to this All-Star game. Um,
But you get one. Who is your one?
as long as Luis Robert is healthy, I guess him. Or I could see Garrett Crochet,
Okay.
because he's been absolutely phenomenal coming in from, you know, missing a season from injury, closing for a season, and now suddenly starting after, years of not doing any kind of starting role. He's been just so good.
Sure. See, that's the nice thing about the All-Star game. You get at least one.
Yeah. So I feel like one of those two will probably be the ones
Okay.
that make it. Although I did mention on the Red Sox podcast that there's and I don't know if you see it, I don't know how much White Sox bleeds into your Twitter feed, but there's kind of a big joke at this point to send Martin Maldonado.
I did see that.
Yeah.
I
So
did see that.
it was trending yesterday, and everyone's like posting screenshots of their all-star ballot and only voting for him. And then other people were like, we're also going to put him in as DH. And I'm like, are we that much of a joke right now? The answer is yes. But so it's just so
Because
frustrating.
he's hitting what, $1.25?
If that, I looked at it earlier and he is so bad. His like OPS plus was -29, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
ouch.
he's not
Oh,
having a great season.
oh, that's wow.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
oh well.
wow.
We'll take a break from that depressing conversation and come back and break down this series. And this is where I awkwardly vamp for a few
You're good.
seconds.
You're good. I do have a couple questions for you when you give me the green light, though.
Okay, that's for it. Or feel free to just say them as you need to. All
Oh,
right.
I'm sure there'll be a time, but if there's not, then I'll do it. It's fine. Like I
Perfect.
said, I let you drive the bus, and I'm just along for the ride. But I did want to make sure you knew did have a couple questions for you.
All right, I'm prepared. Okay, I'm gonna come back. All right, welcome back. Thank you for allowing us to pay bills. So we're gonna break down this series with the Mariners. There were not pitching matchups yet. It is a little early as we're recording, a little earlier than when game time is. But we did kind of break down who might be in the first game. I said you'll likely see Garrett Crochet. Or no, sorry, you will not. I said Eric Fetty. That's who it was. But what can you tell me about this starting rotation in Seattle?
So it looks like game one, you're going to get Logan Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
He really mixes his pitches well. And he's just a workhorse. You're going to get 6, maybe 7 innings from him. You're going to see off speed to the great mix of his cut fastball and four seam fastball. He's going to throw you inside, outside. He has really, really good command for the most part. He's thankfully only given up 5 home runs. Unfortunately, one of those home runs is always in a loss.
Yeah.
So You can get him rattled a little bit if you can put one over the fence. But he is just consistent. Next up is probably going to be Brian Wu, if I'm not mistaken, because it was Gilbert last night and Wu today. Same thing. He's young, but that kid is just straight and steady. He does not get rattled at all. So you're going to see him. As I'm looking at tomorrow's matchup against Kansas City, it's Castillo, so you might get Castillo in game 4. Nope, it's Bryce Miller. So you're going to get Bryson Miller probably game 3 and maybe Luis Castillo game 4, but I don't think you're going to get him at all. Which, but again, the staff for Seattle is just young, and they do not get rattled very easily. Even when Wu had a guy on third base with 1 out today, he just threw pitches, made plays, got 2 guys out, and back in the dugout about 6 pitches later. So that's the entire pitching staff. And when your 30-year-old is the ace of the staff, and everybody else is younger than him, and he's not even got the best winning record on the team, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Seattle's pitching staff does, like I said, lead the majors in innings, but they also lead in quality starts. Every single one of them for like the last 2 weeks has gone 6 or more innings. And so when you have a young pitching staff that can do that, I'm taking that pitching staff any day of the week.
Yeah. Like I said, you guys will. I think it'll be Eric Fetty for that first game, and then you will see Garrett Crochet. It looks like, and then for game 2, it's really up in the air right now. It is Jake Woodford pitching against the Red Sox, doing terribly, and this is his second start in the majors. He just very recently came back up due to constant pitching injuries, which is fine because, the one pitcher that went down, I would prefer he never come back personally. But, I will take Jake Woodford blowing it over that guy. So yeah, who knows who you'll see in game 2, but you will see our best pitchers at least. So that could be a good series. As a girl that loves a pitcher's duel, I am so boring, and people make fun of me for this, but I'm just like, I would rather watch pitchers just shove for 7 innings.
I get it, man. My son is a pitching coach for the Legion team here in Cheyenne, so I love pitching. He loves pitching duels. We like offense, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I like some breathing room every once in a while. But, in the terms of pitching, 3, 4, 5. We only gave up 5 runs this last 3 games. So, and they were the last 2 games, well, actually all 3 of them were pitching duels. But when you're giving up less than 4 runs a game, you got a good chance of winning.
Yeah. And the White Sox can barely hit 1. So again, we just talked about how great this rotation is and how we're going to see some pretty good guys. Would you say the pitching will be the biggest threat, or is there another guy on this team or guys on this team that could really cause some serious damage against this team?
As the biggest threat, rotation-wise, yes, absolutely the pitching. Bats are starting to warm up a little. You couldn't tell it against Oakland, but they faced some really, really strong pitching in Oakland. As a matter of fact, there was a perfect game yesterday, going in through 6. So you got to be a good pitcher to get at least 6 innings of perfection, let alone no hit and everything else that goes with it. Offensively, I already said earlier, Julio is hitting, but he's not producing, and there's a huge difference. And if he can start producing, look out, he's going to start tearing it up. He is starting to hit the ball more in the air. He is starting to get a little more pull to it. And when he starts getting that consistently, like he did last July and August, that's when he starts hitting. And if he can do that now instead of waiting another month or two, the Mariners will be pretty good. Uh, Josh Rojas, actually, for our second baseman / third baseman, depends upon where he plays that day. He's been doing really well as well. But we got to get some of our big bats going. We signed Mitch Garver for a reason. Got to get him going.
Yeah.
You brought Mitch Haniger back from San Francisco for a reason, and you got to get him going. We're going to see. They just recently signed Victor Robles from the Nationals. We'll see what happens there. He dropped a ball that was right in his mid earlier today. But, he brings experience. He brings some pedigree of a world champion to the table. So can that help? Let's hope so. And obviously, if Big Dumper gets going, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So, and he's been pretty cold lately.
Yeah, I've been bummed to see Julio because he was so exciting just last season. I mean, that was such a fun year for him, and now he's just kind of really hit this sophomore slump. And obviously my team's not going anywhere, so I want to see a really excellent, promising young player start to come alive again, because last year was just so great for him.
That August was amazing, record book setting, and this year he started out cold, and teams are starting to pitch him, or have been pitching him inside all year, and he has not learned how to turn on those inside pitches, so he's off balance way too much.
Yeah, and I mean that's the other thing. I always feel like it weighs into it when you're fresh and you're hitting the ball off all of these pitchers. They're not used to you yet, but once you've been around the league a bit more and you've faced the same pitcher twice, they're gonna have a much better idea of how you take your at bats. So I think hopefully he can change it up. Maybe it's just a little tweak that he needs.
Yeah, he's been working on it though. He has, and Service is continually praising his work ethic. So it's not his work ethic. It's just he's got to work through it.
Yeah, it's a mindset.
Absolutely, absolutely. So cool. What else is going on? Talk to me. What else do you need? What other questions you got of me?
Well, these questions have become a joke. Like I said, one is, what are the keys for the Mariners to take this series? And another one is if you have any fears heading into this series. White Sox actually not fearful.
are really good questions. What fears do I have heading into this series for the Mariners? Or what is the key to the Mariners' success? Hit the freaking ball. They had the bases loaded earlier today and scored 1 run. Nobody out, bases loaded, and you can only bring in 1 run. You got to hit the stupid ball. You hit the ball, you're going to win. You probably tell your kid this all the time as he's been learning baseball.
Yep.
Hit the ball, throw the ball, catch the ball. That is how you win games. And fortunately, the Mariners eked out enough hits and runs to win the game today. But that's the key. In any game the Mariners go into, I don't care what pitcher you throw out there, just have them throw strikes inside on guys, and they're going to get strikeouts, and they're not going to know how to hit the ball. Yeah. My fear in this series is that the White Sox pitchers are going to learn that, and they're gonna do just that, and you're going to see 8, 9, 10 strikeouts from the starting pitcher.
Yeah. The two face, they are capable of it.
Yeah. And if your pitching staff discovers that quick and they're on top of it, you have a really good chance of pulling off a couple games. The flip side to that is if you try and make things pretty, the Mariners are actually pretty patient hitters, despite their strikeout rate. But they're striking out on 3-2, 2-2 pitches. they're not striking out 0-3. Most of the time, they're not striking out 0-3. So they are patient hitters. They do command the zone in a better than average way. But that's only because pitchers try to get pretty and try to get cute with some of their pitches instead of just throwing the ball.
Yeah.
So,
That's one thing that I have tried to instill in my son. He's going to be 14 next month. He's been playing baseball since he was 5. So
nice.
he's got a very high baseball IQ, but he can also just get very frustrated at the plate. And he just recently moved up. Now he's in the league, and it's like basically 13 through 17. 17, not as many, but like it's a bigger league. It's kids that are
Mm-hmm.
older and way bigger. And so
Right.
he's had a very frustrating hitting slump where he's just, the pitches are inconsistent and he just doesn't always know what to do. And I've said, you need to have patience, draw a walk if you need to,
Yeah.
do what you need to do. But if it's a good pitch and it is close by, swing. I don't care if you miss it. I do not care if you strike out swinging. Swing. When the
Swing. Yeah.
ball is there, close to you, watch it and swing. That's how you produce. And we actually just worked on this yesterday at a batting cage where it's like, I'm watching him try to hit this first series and I'm just like, something's off. And I'm trying to like examine it. And I was like, you know what? Actually, and I'm trying to like show him, which is funny because I'm like the only woman in this batting cage full of like boys aged 5 to 19 and all their dads. And I'm just like sitting here outside the cage, like holding this bat. And I was like, so you need to stand like this and move, like swing with your hips. Don't, and I'm just showing him all these like different kind of stances and how to adjust to what he's doing. And he goes in for like his second rep and makes contact with almost every single ball. And it's just
Nice.
kind of continued that way. And I was like, see what I mean? You
Yep.
have to be patient and you have to really get your body into the correct position because if
Yep.
you're standing away from the plate and you're doing too much, you're not going to hit that ball. If you're
Yep.
patient and you're standing there and you're in the best position you can be, it's going to go out to the fence. And he was like, well, I guess you're right.
Maybe I should listen to mom, not coach.
I know. I was like, I know a few things. Don't listen to people yelling at you,
Yeah. Yeah.
outside of the game. Listen to mom when I'm just trying to fix your posture.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And one thing you might need to tell them is you increase your chances 100% when you swing the bat.
Yeah.
That's one thing that when my kid was coming up and playing competitive ball and learning, and we had myself and 3 other guys out there. Every single one of us coaches are like, you increase your chances 100% if you swing. Don't don't not try. If you
Yeah.
don't try, then we're going to get mad. But if you at least swing, who cares? You're you're swinging. You've increased your chances.
Yeah. And I know he gets so frustrated when he does strike out, but I'm like, you swung for all 3 of those. You swung, you weren't watching it, you weren't just hoping it was going to be a ball. You were at least swinging.
Yeah,
And and I always have to say, Major League Baseball players strike out constantly. You do
yeah,
not you do not go to a game and see a home run derby. You see a
no,
bunch of strikeouts
yeah. Let him watch this series against Seattle. He's going to see probably a good 40 strikeouts in those 4 games,
easily. Yeah.
and that's just Seattle.
Right. So before we move on to baseball in general, you have hinted at the during the break that you have questions for me.
I do. So you were asking me, who's the key cog here to the ship or whatever you want to say. Trade deadline is coming up, and there's been scuttlebutt that obviously there's teams that are going to sell, there's teams that are going to buy. I'm guessing Chicago is probably going to sell, but my question here is who?
See, this is the scary part as a fan of this team, knowing that they are not in any kind of contention window, but wanting games to still be enjoyable because
Right.
I've heard a ton of talk around Garrett Crochet and Eric Fetty. And again,
Okay.
those are our best pitchers. But I've heard a lot of talk about those two. Unfortunately, they're not going to take an Andrew Benintendi. Nobody's going to want that, and nobody's going to want to pay that contract
Correct.
because he doesn't do anything. Um, so I just am nervous those two will go. There used to be a lot of rumors toward Michael Kopech, but now he's in
Oh,
this like closing position and he's not
okay.
consistent enough. So I don't know that maybe someone would be like, I can fix him, maybe not. But I've heard some about that too. And I don't, I don't think Luis Robert's going to go anywhere. Um, he still has a year left on his contract,
Right.
but it's also contract years for Yoan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez, who I don't see those being renewed, but I also don't see anybody picking them up anytime soon. They're both injured. Story of their lives. They've I think been on the injured list more than they've played actual baseball in a few seasons. But yeah, I worry that they are going to sell on a bunch of really great pitching, and I don't feel like they are good businessmen. I do not trust Chris Getz at all. Um,
Right.
so I'm just really nervous as to what they might try to bring in. And no, I mean, there aren't really many guys right now down in the farm that are ready to come up. So I don't know where they're going to be, once July flips. And that's terrifying.
Oh, I understand that. And so I guess the question here is, as I just looked over your pitching staff, one, what's going on with Clevenger?
Mm.
Because I've often enjoyed watching him pitch, sometimes annoyingly often watched him pitch. But is there value in some of your veteran pitching that is there?
So with him, he is on the injured list, and it was some elbow soreness. He's
Okay.
already had Tommy John once.
Hmm.
Typically, when you say elbow soreness and you've been out for, 2 weeks at this point, it doesn't look great for
Sure.
his return, obviously. And at the same time, I constantly remind myself 29 other teams passed on him twice because he came into the
Mm-hmm.
season later.
Mm-hmm.
Because people just, I don't think people wanted to deal with that drama, much like the Trevor Bauer of it all. People
Sure.
don't necessarily want the baggage that comes with those players,
Right.
um, which is fair. Excuse me. But yeah, I don't know if it is going to actually take him if he's
That's
injured,
fair.
especially.
Yeah, well, and that was part of the other thinking is, okay, I see he's injured. I see, you've got a couple guys there on the 60-day IL, obviously for great reasons. But the other one that kind of caught my eye, just simply because he's been in Seattle, is Dominic Leone. What's going
Mm,
on with him?
yeah. He had a pretty decent start. Like he was kind of more of a bright spot. I could see some value in him. I'm not sure what team wants to take it on, but I don't really see a downside because the thing about the White Sox is they bring in this phenomenal talent and then they destroy them within a year. And then
That's
and then they go to another team and they're great. And I've been seeing
for
this
too
season.
long.
Yeah. I mean, I see Carlos Rodon, I see Ronaldo
Hmm.
Lopez is practically leading in pitching. He's been phenomenal down in Atlanta. Chrystal excelled in Boston, is excelling
Right.
now in Atlanta. Like I feel like they bring in these incredibly talented players and they either injure them and it's like a season-long injury, or it's like consistent injuries, or they just ruin them. So
Mm-hmm.
then they sell, and somebody manages to like scoop up these broken pieces and turn it into this beautiful, shiny object again, where they're doing great. And that's painful to watch as someone who loved
Sure.
Rodon and Ronaldo Lopez, and then and Lance Lynn even had a really terrible season with the White Sox last year,
Yeah.
and has been fine on the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like almost anyone really could be up for grabs,
Okay.
and
That's
they
fair.
could fix them.
That's
And
fair.
at this point, I kind of am having this like, I don't know. It's kind of just this. Do I want them to build a franchise and extend Luis Robert, or do I want to have just a fire sale and just completely redo this team? So I have this constant battle between those two options.
Well, as a Mariner fan, we've done that, and it was brutal
Hmm.
in 18, 19. Little hope with 21, and 22 was phenomenal. 23 was like, what just happened? And well, now we're here.
Yeah.
But and then the lean years in the 80s and 90s just. Oh, I was a doomed Seattle fan from the start, and it just didn't matter which sport it was. So I mean, we're going pretty good right now. Heck, we might even get a basketball team back
Yeah, I saw.
the
I
at
missed
the
this Sonics.
closing of the new television deal. So hey, cool. I guess the next question then, in leading to that, is when you make these deals and can find a suitor to, unfortunately, maybe unload a fresh young star. Where's the biggest need there in the system? Not just on the big league team. I'm
Hmm.
talking overall in the organization. Where does that focus need to land?
So I will say pitching in all aspects, both bullpen, both rotation, close, like all of that just needs redone because it's really bad. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
express just how bad it is. There's some hope for Corey Lee coming up as a catcher. He's been able to hit the ball, which is really all I can ask for, and his framing isn't terrible. So at least there's hope there that
Sure.
Martin Maldonado won't always be there. Um, but our pitching has just been so bad that even if the White Sox are able to score runs, like Paul DeJong has been leading the White Sox now with 10 home runs. Gavin Sheets has warmed up and is able to hit the ball again. Luis Robert is back and able to hit the ball
Mm-hmm.
again. So even if those three, sometimes you've got like a few others kind of weaved in there in that lineup that can hit the ball, but the pitching will still blow a game, especially the bullpen. Because again, just playing the Cubs, we were up 5-0, in that second game and ended up still losing 7-6 because that
Right.
bullpen, once they let Fetty go and once they let Chris Flexen go after a rain delay, it just felt like all hell broke loose. Um, and again, with Kopech, he had all this potential. We thought he was great. He's still throwing like 100 mile per hour fastballs, but they aren't strikes. Or he's
Oh.
giving up home runs. Like after 2 pitches in this Cubs series, when he came in to close, he gave up a home run to let the Cubs walk it off. So that just needs completely retooled because it is just a pain to watch. I say that right now as in the corner of my screen, it is 7-0 Red Sox in top of the fourth with poor Jake Woodford, who has started twice now, is pitching. So we have nothing. Like
Sure.
outside of the two that I've, harped on for being so great, there is nothing that we
Mm-hmm.
can really depend on. So they need to focus on that more than anything. That's the biggest wound.
That's fair. Does that come down to coaching or organizational?
So I think it comes down to a lot. I don't think Ethan Katz should keep his job, to be completely honest. I think he's not been able to turn these pitchers around. You know, he talked about how he turned Lucas Giolito around. He had the no-hitter during the pandemic, and like he looked so great. He came from being the worst pitcher in baseball in 2018 to throwing a no-hitter in 2020 because he was teaming up with, you know, his best bud, um, Ethan Katz. And then he suddenly just completely started dropping back off again to the point where he was no longer consistent. Who was someone that was once their ace was no longer consistent. And, you know, with losing Dylan Cease, I think we were all just completely terrified because he was finally like ramping up. He was kind of what Giolito was in 2020. But again, Ethan Katz, I think, broke Carlos Rodon. He broke Lucas Giolito. He just continues to just make it so they are unbearable to watch. And then Pedro Grifol, our manager, cannot manage a bullpen. He cannot manage those late innings to save his life. He, you know, pulls people when they really shouldn't, when they should still play it out. And then he just makes the worst decisions going into these late innings. And then they blow the lead and they get just completely stomped on by these teams. So I really think the two of them are the big issue in that dugout right now. And will that change while Jerry Reinsdorf is still alive? Probably not. Or while Chris Getz is still there. But, you know, I think it just, a lot of that coaching staff in general just needs to go because they're not getting us anywhere.
Right. I had to ask. Sorry.
No. No, it's fine. It's nothing that, you know, people don't already know on their own.
That's fair.
It's been so tough to watch this team.
Yeah. And every time I watch, I swear I see him commit 2, 3, 4 errors in a game, and I'm just like, how did you like put your clown shoes on today and forgot your cleats? I don't know. And honestly, you know, I have nothing against either of the Chicago teams. Man, my heart just hurts for the White Sox fans. So good back in the 80s and 90s. And I just don't know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the White Sox just, you know, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago were a team in contention. They were great. They won the whole series. I mean, they swept the Astros in 2005.
Yeah.
And they were in this contention window and were playing like it, you know, in 17, 18. And then, you know, 2021, we thought, oh, okay, well, we've made it to October. Immediately bounced, you know, out of that. But like we at least got there. And then, you know, once Ricky was fired, it kind of sloped downhill when, you know, Tony La Russa came in. And yes, they did get into the playoffs at least under La Russa, but that was still some of the worst managing I've ever seen.
Oh, cool.
So
yes, when fans are passing notes to the manager to say pinch hit now, there's nothing good can happen with that.
Well, I'm reminded of him just not knowing the rules, and you know when they changed over to the ghost runner going into extra innings, he sent Liam Hendricks out, a closer that doesn't run. He sent Liam Hendricks out.
Hey, pitchers are athletes too, man. Pitchers are athletes too.
But come on. and he's falling asleep in the dugout. He doesn't know any of the rules. He just made a mockery of poor Yermín Mercedes, who was having this excellent April that year. And then the whole 3-0 thing without a green light when the White Sox were already up by plenty, he just destroyed him and, advocated for, players to be hit by the ball after that, like his own players. And just it all was just put a horrible taste in my mouth for the entirety of him and his resurgence with the White Sox. And I think it just, with Tony and now Pedro, and no longer having Ricky, who was the one that could, and I'm not saying Ricky was great by any means, but he at least had the players in control. There wasn't all this like in-house drama going on.
Right.
And then Tony came and then Pedro, and it's just been, these rumors of Yasmani Grandal punching Tim Anderson in the clubhouse, and just, the team just not getting along and not respecting, their managers and not stretching. Like, this was a year that, everyone got injured running to first. And I'm like, are they stretching ahead of time? Like, this was a serious concern I had of like, why is Adam Engel, pulling his hamstring getting to first base? Why is everyone injured? So it was just like, what are we doing here? Where is the disconnect with these managers and these players? So it got so sad.
Yeah. Ooh. Well, and that again, like I said with the Astros, maybe it's a physical trainer. Maybe that's a problem, and maybe a new training staff, like physical training staff, with your therapists and your doctors that you have there at the field every day.
Yeah, it's
huge. It really is.
One, and they've been terrible since.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know a kid that grew up here in Cheyenne. I think she's at the AA complex for the Mariners right now. She's pretty good. She's pretty good. I'm sure she wouldn't mind.
I have offered to teach yoga to these players ahead of games. Dylan Cease, big advocate of yoga. I was like, I'll just go out there and make them stretch. It can be tough, especially if you're not used to those different positions.
Yeah.
I will go out and make sure these guys are stretching. Just give me a mat in about 30 minutes.
So what you're saying is the next time I pull up a pregame show from Chicago, you're going to see Chrystal Keefe out there leading yoga for a few of the guys. I like that.
That's my dream job at this point.
I like it.
So sad.
I like it. So those are the questions I had for you.
Yeah, perfect. Well, before we end, this is where I like to just listen to any fun takes you have, any predictions, any hot takes, just any MLB related things that you've noticed so far this season.
So I'm going to stick with my preseason hot take, and Shohei Ohtani will lead the majors in home runs.
Okay.
He gets several more games here in Colorado. How in the world they didn't let him hit about 5 or 6 while he was here the first time, I have no idea. But I'm still going to stick with that. He's starting to warm up again. His blast against Skeens last night was phenomenal.
Yeah.
As
a Skeens fan, that kind of hurt, but that's
yeah, it hurt. So I'm going to stick with that kind of a hot take. At the beginning of the year, Pittsburgh was adamant that they weren't going to bring Skeens up at all during the year, and I'm like, that is the dumbest move you will ever make if you don't do it. So I'm really glad they made that move. So I was not impressed with any other rookie in the National League. Not that there aren't any, because there are some pretty good rookies out there. But Skeens will win Rookie of the Year in the National League.
Yeah, I was at his last minor league pitching start before he
Nice.
got called up.
Nice. Um, Looking forward in the season. Um, the Dodgers are going to pull a Dodger come the postseason, and they're going to fold.
I was going to
Um,
ask with Shohei leading, that was going to be a follow up.
yep, it's unfortunately going to happen. If Shohei was pitching, my story might be different.
Mm-hmm.
However, he's not pitching, so the story will not change. They, I don't know. It's like the Mets. The Mets just do Mets things in the regular season. The Dodgers do Dodger things in the postseason, and
Yeah.
it's going to continue. Um, Another kind of bold prediction. The local sports show, one of the local sports shows here in Cheyenne, I was on a couple weeks ago, and they asked me a question about the Mets and when they were going to blow that thing up. After watching the last couple weeks of Mets baseball, uh, they will have a fire sale come July.
Yeah.
I don't know how they avoid it. I don't. It is a mess, and I to blame nobody but the owner for that mess. So those are basically the ones that I got for you.
Yeah. Those are great. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining and
Absolutely,
talking about this team. Please let people know where to find you.
absolutely. I can be found basically on any social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Snapchat. My Twitter, my X handle is right there.
We'll
Um,
tag it too.
at a underscore Ron1PK. Or you can just search my name, Aaron Casey. Uh, Interact with me. I love it. You can also find First Pitch Strike on X, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look up First Pitch Strike or 1PK
Yeah, for
or
sure.
First PK or something like that. So
We will link it in our show notes and the article that comes up with this so people can be sure. But yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you and best of luck. This was great.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me anytime. I'll do it again whenever you need.
Thank you.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye.